Well, good morning. I want to thank Graham for reading that. You know, I thought it was funny that we ended the song to listen to our hearts, and then it was Graham Hart reading to you. I just thought that was funny. I got jokes. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning. I'm glad that you all are here, every person. And for so many that we have out of town, I'm so thankful for Harrison Jones and his clan that are filling up the seats this morning. It's so good to have you all here. And we get to do this every week, and I know I say it every week, but I'm so thankful for you, and I love you, and I'm glad we get to do this together. No doubt, we're all familiar with the flooding that's happened in Texas over the last week, and the tragedy that came about from that. And when tragedy strikes, so much of the world will cry out, "Where is God?" I know this week, Coy and I were headed down to Tuscaloosa to work, and so he got to actually sit in and hear this conversation with my best friend Scott, who's not a Christian, though we're still always trying. But Scott has a very, very much a worldly point of view and everything, and Scott at 55 years old has just become a father for the first time. And so this was all brand new to him, and he's thinking about how much he loves his new baby daughter, and he was thinking about the little girls at this camp that had gone missing and washed away. And you know, he called me and wanted to know where my God was. That why didn't my God save those little girls? How do we answer that? I mean, there's a long form answer that I tried to get into with him, and I got about halfway into it, and he decided he didn't want to talk anymore. But the point is there is an answer for that. There is an answer for why tragedies happen. We're going to get to that in this lesson. But sometimes whenever we try to answer it, we will say, very well-meaningly so, we'll say things like, well, it was God's will, or something along those lines. And I don't believe for a second that it was God's will that anybody die this week, let alone a group of young girls at a summer camp. And though that's the tone most of the time, I believe as Christians we do have to be able to see Christ in it. Though we probably shouldn't say that it was God's will, we have to be able to see God in it. And maybe not it's His will, but somehow, somewhere in the midst of tragedy, we have to see our Savior. We have to see our Comforter. We have to see our King and know that He truly does care. And that He feels the same things that we do. He feels sad. He feels angry. He wants the truth. And that He's also willing to extend grace. And so this morning for a few minutes from John chapter 11, we're going to look at this question. Where was Jesus? And where is He now? Because we see all of these things displayed here in John chapter 11 when Jesus encountered the tragic death of a good friend. Graham read for us the first 11 verses, but I want to pick up in verse 17. Read with me in verse 17 of John chapter 11. It says, "So when Jesus came, He found that He had already been to the tomb for 4 days. And now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 15 stadia away, and many of the Jews had come to Mary and Martha to console them about their brother. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet Him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Martha then said to Jesus, 'Lord, if You had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever You ask from God, God will give You.' Jesus said to her, 'Your brother will rise again.' And Martha said to Him, 'I know that He'll rise again in the resurrection on the last day.' Jesus said to her, 'I am the resurrection and the life. Who believes in Me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in Me will never die ever. Do you believe this?' She said to Him, 'Yes, Lord. I have believed that You are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who comes into the world.' And when she had said this, she went away and called Mary, her sister, secretly, saying, 'The teacher is here and calling for you.' And when she heard it, she got up quickly and was coming to Him. And now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still in a place where Martha had met Him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, when they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, they followed her, thinking that she was going to the tomb to cry there. Therefore, when Mary came to where Jesus was, she saw Him, fell at His feet, saying to Him, 'Lord, If you had been here, my brother would not have died." And when Jesus therefore saw her crying, and the Jews who came with her also crying, he was deeply moved in the spirit and troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews were saying, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could this man who opened the eyes of the blind man and kept this man also from dying?" So Jesus again was deeply moved within and came to the tomb, and now it was a cave and a stone lying against it. And he said, "Remove the stone." Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, "Lord, by this time there's a smell, for he's been dead 4 days." And Jesus said to her, "Did I not say that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they removed the stone, and then Jesus raised his eyes and said to the Father, "I thank you, for you've heard me. And I knew that you always hear me, but because of the crowd standing around, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." The man who had died came forth, bound hand and foot in wrappings, and his face wrapped around the cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Therefore, many of the Jews who came to Mary saw that he had done these things and believed him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them the things in which Jesus had done. Long reading, I know, but very important to the context today. Because Mary and Martha were facing the same problem that many Americans are today. They're looking at a tragedy and they're saying, "Where were you, Lord? In all of this, where were you? Make this make sense." And so Jesus moves through the ruins of a tragedy with 4 very human things. He moves through this tragedy with tears, and then with anger, and then with truth, and then finally grace. The truth he wields to Martha, the tears he sheds with Mary, the anger he directs at the tomb, and then the grace that he, in extension, will give to everyone. And here's how those things fit together. Let's begin first with the tears of Jesus. I think this is profound because we understand this to be one of the shortest verses, if not the shortest verse in the Bible. And it says so much in 2 words. That Jesus wept. That Jesus cried. How do we learn from that? What do we learn from that? When Jesus reaches Mary, she asks him this major theological question. "Lord, why weren't you here? You could have stopped this." But he couldn't even speak. He just wept. The only thing he said to her was, "Where have you laid him?" He's troubled. The passage I read from said that he was deeply moved. This reaction is startling to me because when Jesus enters this situation, he comes with 2 things that you and I don't have. Neither did the crowd there have. First, he comes knowing why it happened. He knows how he is going to turn it into a manifestation of the glory of God. He knows what he's going to do, and that in about 10 minutes, they will all be rejoicing. When you and I enter into these tragic situations, like in Kerrville, Texas, when this flood ravaged through this quiet little place in Texas, we don't have that knowledge. We don't have the knowledge that Jesus had in this moment. We have no idea. And the second thing that Jesus has, besides knowledge, is power. Jesus has the power to do something about the problem. You and I can't do a thing to undo it. And yet, Jesus still weeps. Now think about it. Why? Why doesn't he just come in and say, "Y'all just wait and see. Just hold on a minute, I'm about to do something"? Why doesn't he say that? If you knew that you were about to turn everything around, would you be drawn down towards grief like Jesus was? Entering into this trauma and pain that they were going through in their hearts, down in this dark hole in their hearts? Why would Jesus do that? And the answer is because he's perfect. And he is perfect love. He will not close his heart. Not even for 10 minutes. He will not refuse to enter into this dark place with them. He doesn't say something like, well, there's no point in entering into all this grief because I'm about to fix it. He goes in. He gets in there and sits with them in this moment. And there are two things we have to learn from that. The first is simple, but it needs to be said that there is nothing wrong with weeping at a time like this. And though Jesus is going to fix it, he doesn't go in and say, I'm about to fix this. He goes in and he cries with the family. When we become more like Jesus, we shouldn't avoid grief either. So often we want to just avoid it. We're terrified of it because we don't know how to act. And the reality is that you just act however it comes out. That's what grief is. We find ourselves pulled into grief with those who are hurting, and there's something very right about that. But Jesus' tears also suggest something about our need to fix things. We know what's going to happen in the story, and we want Jesus to go ahead and just fix it. Skip this part and just fix it. We also want to make whole what's been broken. When we see people hurting, we can't stand it. There's nothing worse for me to see someone that I love hurt. But sometimes what that looks like is entering into the abyss with them and just hurting too. Sometimes that's what that looks like. So let's enter in. Let's not just try to fix it. Let's weep with those who weep. Tears are a natural response to show great compassion and support. And so Jesus cried for the victims here. The first lesson about suffering through tragedy is learned here in the tears of Jesus. But Jesus doesn't stay sad very long. That quickly turns into anger. The second thing we learn about suffering through the tragedy is we learn the anger that Jesus has. Did you notice in the text that I read, it indicated that Jesus was angry? It doesn't say so. Verse 33 says that Jesus saw Mary and others weeping, and it says he was deeply moved in the spirit and troubled. Here's the thing. If you go to the original Greek language there, that word deeply moved, that phrase means to quake with rage. We think about being deeply moved, and we look at some sort of inward movement of emotions, and we often leave out anger, but in the Greek, that's what that means here. It means that he quaked with rage. Verse 38, as Jesus came to the tomb, it says, again, he was deeply moved. And the Greek in that context means to roar with anger like a lion or a bull. This is relevant to us because this is what many Americans were going through this week with the tragedy that took place in Texas. Angry, wanting to blame someone. They wanted this to be someone's fault. They even tried to make it the president's fault that rain happened. But that's what anger does. Anger looks to find someone to blame. And our shock and our grief give way to fear and anger. There's a lot of rage going on in this passage too. And Jesus is also angry. But what does he do with it? There are two things that he doesn't do. The first thing is he doesn't become like Job's friends. You remember Job's friends in the book of Job? A series of tragedies happen to Job. His children die. He loses all of his money. He gets sick. And his friends come and say, clearly, this is your fault. Clearly, you're not living right. God must be judging you and your sins for the bad things that are happening wouldn't be happening otherwise. Jesus doesn't say that to Mary or Martha. He's not mad at them. He says to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. It's one of the most incredible claims ever made. He doesn't just say, I'm a healer. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the offerer of life. He is claiming here to be God because he is God. And when he gets to the tomb, he doesn't demonize anyone, including the victims or God the Father. What does he do with his rage? He focuses it on death itself. He focuses his anger on death. He's angry at the tomb. Jesus says, I'm going to turn this death into resurrection. I'm going to bring out of this something greater than what was here before. And that is the gospel story, isn't it? Out of the cross comes resurrection. Out of weakness comes real strength. Out of repentance, admitting that we're weak, becomes real power. Out of giving away and serving others comes real strength. And out of generosity comes real wealth. That is the gospel. That is the good news. And here's the point. Unless we too learn how to handle our anger, unless we too have a storyline to put it in, we can be railing and angry against others and God, or we can be angry at death itself. Anger is a natural response. But improperly focused anger can damage our perspective. Jesus was angry, but he was angry at death. We have to be able to say, I'm going to put a light on. I'm going to go into this dark place and I'm going to put a light on. And you might say, well, that's pretty hard to do. But that's why Jesus gave us the third thing. He gives us the truth. He says to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe this? He asked her. And Martha says, yeah, I believe it. Do you? He implies. It's as if he's saying, I hope you do. And here is what he offers. It's not consolation, it's resurrection. Jesus does not say he's going to give us consolation. He gives us resurrection. This is the power of the future, the power of a new heaven and a new earth, the joy, the wholeness, the newness that will come for us. When all the tears will be wiped away and gone, and the suffering and death and disease will be wiped out. The power of all that will incorporate and envelop everything. Everything is going to be made better in the resurrection. That's why Jesus says it. Everything is going to be better. Everything is going to be right. If you believe and obey the gospel, then you have that. We have that. So Jesus asked us all, do you believe this? Because if we do, man, we can face anything. The truth is often hard to hear in times of tragedy, yet Jesus calls the victims here to have faith in him. Jesus, this wouldn't have happened. Have faith. Why weren't you here? Have faith. Wait. Wait on the Lord and see. See what happens. But the last thing we have to recognize here is that Jesus offers tears and truth and anger. But notice the last line from what we read. It says, from that day on, they plotted to take his life. It's a funny way to end the story, isn't it? After Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, his enemies said, now he's got to go. He is the most dangerous man there is. We have got to get rid of him now. Don't you think Jesus knew that? That when he was raising Lazarus from the dead, don't you think they knew that they would see him do this and go, okay, he's got to go. This is too much. Of course he did. Jesus knew this and he made a deliberate decision, a deliberate choice to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew that the only way to interrupt Lazarus' funeral was to cause his own. We have a God who is so committed to ending suffering, Listen to me. He is so committed to ending suffering and death that he's willing to come to the world and share in that suffering and in death itself. He's so committed to ending it that he was willing to come and share in it. I know that only because Christianity alone, of all the religions, tells us that God has specifically loved us this way, that God lost his son in an unjust attack, in a tragedy. That's not me. When somebody says, I don't know that God cares about our suffering, I say, of course he does. Of course he does. And they might ask me, well, how do you know that? Because if I were in any other religion, I wouldn't know what to say. But the proof is that he was willing to suffer with us. That he came as a man and endured all that we endure, even the death of a friend, that he would go into this grief with his friends. Here's the reason why tragedies happen. And it's not God's fault. If you don't hear anything else I say today, I want you to hear that. None of the tragedies that happen, whether it's a school shooting, whether it's a flood in Texas, whether it's a bombing in New York City, none of these things are God's fault, and here's why. In the beginning, God gave Adam and Eve. God gave Adam and Eve authority over this world. That's what he said. Subdue the earth and fill it. God gave Adam and Eve all the authority on earth. But when they gave in to temptation by Satan to sin, they gave the authority that mankind was supposed to have to him. And he has been wreaking havoc on us ever since. God told Adam, the day of which you eat it, you will die. And man, we've been dying ever since. Sickness and storms and suffering, ultimately death, are the result of this transfer of power from man to Satan via sin. Satan via deception of Eve, and then Adam, he usurped their authority. Satan is literally called the king of this world by Paul in Ephesians chapter 2. The prince of the power of the air. So whose fault is the suffering? Whose fault is the tragedy? Ours. We invited this. God gave us one rule and we said, nah, I still want what I want. And so we got it. And we got all that comes with it. It's our fault. We gave Satan this authority over us. And I don't know all the reasons why Jesus hasn't ended suffering and evil yet by now, but I know the fact that he was willing to get involved is proof that he must have some good reason for it, and that he's using it to complete and perfect our faith, and that he has not left us without hope. We have to know that he cares because of that. He's not remote. He's not far away from us. And in tragedies like these, Jesus is with us. Martha and Mary, these two sisters, are in the same situation, same circumstance, same brother. They even had the same question, where were you? But in Martha's case, Jesus' words were almost a rebuke, as he laid truth on her. In Mary's case, he just cried with her. And sometimes when you go to a counselor, maybe all the counselor wants to do is cry when you really need someone to tell you the truth. But Jesus is the perfect counselor, and so he's always going to give us what we need. If you need the truth or you need tears, you're going to get it. He'll give it to you the day you need it. He'll give it to you in the dosage that you need it. He'll give it to you in the order that you need it. He is the only perfect counselor there is. And so we need to go to him in these times. We need to get his tears. We need to get his truth. We need to get his anger. We need all these things, but most of all, we need this. We need his grace. Grace is an unnatural response. That I'm going to give to you something that you don't deserve. It is unnatural as anything in the world. But Jesus would soon die after this and conquer death once and for all. Jesus is greater than death. Jesus is greater than tragedy. And it is what we need most, and it's what he came here to give. And so where was God? Right where he's always been. Near to the brokenhearted, saving the crushed in spirit, David says. But with the horrible tragedy in Texas last week, it's not about where Jesus was, but it's who he's with now in heaven. And there's no doubt in my mind that those lost young girls are with him. Where do we want to be? With Jesus, we can face it all, no matter the tragedy. We can be more than conquerors, he said. I know many prayers have gone up for the people in Kerrville, Texas, and many have gone to help, and those are good things. Things like this don't make sense, and we know that Satan is at the core of it. When he's in the mix, nothing's going to make sense. But it's times like these, to see Jesus in it, we have to see heaven past it. Satan for a little while has sway over this world, and we want to be mad. Well, then be mad at him. Be mad at death like Jesus. Seeing Jesus die on a cross, but don't stop there. Go on past the cross. Go to the tomb where he rose and defeated death once and for all. So where was Jesus? Well, the angel told the disciples that came to the tomb that he's not here. He is risen. And that is where he wants us to be with him. Such a horrible tragedy. And we're never going to have the answers that we want. But this is the truth that we have. Jesus cared enough to come and suffer to understand what it's like. And while Satan has sway over this world, we will endure tragedies like this. And so if there's never been a more important time to ask this question, it's now. What are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about our situation in this life where Satan has so much power that we gave to him? What are we going to do? This morning, if you need to become a Christian, that's the first step. To die to your sins, putting him on in baptism, repenting, and living a new life for him, awaiting the day that we too will be with him. And if that's where you've been and you've lost your way, he leaves the light on and you can come home. So whatever it is that you need, I beg you, let it be known now as we sing a song to encourage you.